Sorry, I just hit record so that I can
Good.
introduce Ellen. So if you don't want to be on recording, you can leave your video off. You can stay muted if you'd like. But we've got here Ellen Kamhi, natural nurse. She's going to talk about any questions that you all might have. She's here to answer questions. And she's also going to talk about her new upcoming natural nurse series. So for now, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ellen. We've got Rita here with us, also assisting. And I'm Debbie with the Florida School of Holistic Living, as well as Rita. So let's go ahead and get started.
Well, hi guys. You can put on your cameras and, voice capability, whatever's there, if you'd like, because this is not a lecture, right? I just gave a lecture already this morning for Florida School. In fact, we talked about something like this, Ixora. Do any of you recognize this flower? Grows right outside your house in many parts of Florida. And we were talking about really crystals. And we were talking about healing with crystals and plants and the intersection of those things. So that's what we did this morning. But this today gathering is actually an open discussion where you can ask any questions. A lot of people kind of had questions about why would they want to take the Natural Nurse Herbal Certification course. And I believe with this school, this might be the 5th year we're giving it. Do you know, Deb, it's the 4th year or 5th year? It's been
Gosh,
several.
yeah,
Is,
it's been several years. I'm not sure exactly when we started.
and then what people have been able to accomplish after taking it. So that's what a lot of questions are. Some people are, if I take that class, am I an herbalist? Questions like that. Can I use this towards, if you wanted to be a family herbalist? Would it go towards your education if you're part of the family herbalist program with the Florida School? What if you want to be an RH, a registered herbalist? And what is a registered herbalist? And could you use this information towards your registered herbalist? Or if you're working in some other program called master herbalist, could you use it towards that? So those are the kinds of questions, that we're here to talk about, as well as what will we cover in this class. It's a 4-class series. Also, one thing is you can take any one of the classes on its own if you'd like. If you're someone who needs CE units, you can get 3 CE units for any one of the 4 classes. So that's 12 units, right? 4 times 3, if there's 3 each, that would be 12 units. But the full class, first of all, costs much less because there's a discount for actually registering for the full class. And you also get 18 CE units. So the only people who'd be interested in CE units is if you already have a license. So if you are a nurse like myself or a nurse practitioner or a licensed massage therapist, they need ongoing classes every year, or a registered dietitian or a clinical nutritionist. Instead of taking like a mainstream nursing class, you could actually take an herbal class and get 18 CEUs. But what's so wonderful about the Florida School is you can go either way. You can take something and get credits, or just choose not to get credits and use it for your personal educational advancement, depending on what you want. So I see 3 people here. We had lots and lots of people sign up, and I think more are coming in right now. And my concept here, since I already just talked an hour and a half on the crystals and sacred geometric patterns in plants, so I would love if any of you would like, if you don't want to put your camera on, you can just unmute yourself, or you can put in the chat a question that you might have.
So Ellen, I can get the ball rolling with some of the questions that I've encountered from students who maybe couldn't be here today. Um, and one was, can you give a little bit more definition or explanation to what it means, because it's called a certification course? And so what exactly does that certification entail? And what can be done with that certification?
Okay, that's a very good question. So first of all, a certification is not a license. And that's something very, very important to understand. If you have a license, you know it because you spent a lot of money to get it and you took courses to get it. A license is something that is state recognized or nationally recognized. So that's not a certificate, it's a license. What's so unique about our class here for Florida School, the Natural Nurse Herbal Certification course, is that, as I mentioned, you can use it towards any one of those professional licenses in terms of what you have to take for continuing ed credits, but you're learning about herbal medicine. So that's the license. The certificate is very good. What you get is at the end of the class, you get a beautiful actual certificate that you can, some people, although we email it to you, many of my students who have taken it in the past have gotten it printed out at a fancy printing place if they don't have a fancy printer on really good paper, and they will hang it, which you can do on the wall. So when someone comes in, there's your name and that you have participated in and have completed the certification course called Natural Nurse Herbal Certification course. Now, what can you do with that? What you can not necessarily open up an office and say that you're an herbalist and you can see everybody, because guess what? There is no such thing in any state. In other words, that's a whole other class where we talk about licensing, and we also talk about legally promoting a natural health business, or let's say a line of herbs. If you make your own herbs and you want to sell them, we have a class for that too. That's called Herbal Manufacturing Legal Considerations. And the same is true with the certificate, because since there is no licensing of herbalists, the fact is that anybody who never took one class of any kind in herbal medicine or in health can just say they're an herbalist any time of the day or night. They can just decide, oh, they can put a sign outside, say, I'm an herbalist, come talk to me. The thing is, if they don't know how to do that legally, then if an authority comes in and questions them, they can actually be arrested, and many people are, unfortunately, for practicing medicine without a license. And that is illegal in every state. And saying that you're a drugless healer does not get you off the hook. Okay, so what it's not is a license. But what a certificate is something recognized within the profession as being worthwhile. And there are some very, very good certificates. For instance, the RH, which is a registered herbalist, and that's a certificate, not a license. And that is granted through the national organization, the American Herbalist Guild. And it's not a license, but it's widely recognized to where there's a standardized amount of training that someone has to go through to get that. And I would know that. If so, I'm an RH and I know what every other RH goes through. For starters, it's 1,600 hours of herbal study. It's 400 hours of client contact and many other things. You have to take a class in anatomy and physiology. You have to take a class in botany. There's many other things. But as part of that 1,600 hours of study to get an RH, which you don't have to ever do, you don't have to ever do that, this class would be used towards that. Should you want to be an RH, then taking the Natural Nurse Herbal Certification course is fully recognized under the RH banner as being a certificate that is part of your study. But let's say you're just interested in learning more about herbal medicine so that you can use it safely and effectively for yourself and your family. Let's say that's where you're starting. This is an excellent, excellent class for that, because you will know the right way to give a dose. You will know the right way to read a label of a product that's on a shelf, because that's even very confusing and worth knowing, because many people think an extract and a tincture is the same thing, which it is not. And even if you're using something for yourself and your family, you want to know, if you pick up a bottle even of capsules, how many milligrams is my child supposed to take? How many milligrams am I supposed to take? How many milligrams is my grandma supposed to use? You will know that by the end of this class. We also have a class in botany, and that doesn't mean you're a botanist once you take the class, but it does teach you the right places to look up the information about botany, which is coherent and correct. And I would say that's a lot of my desire with this class, is that when people come out of it, are they going to know everything? They'll know a lot. And one of the main things you definitely will know is how to look up what works. What works for arthritis? What works for a cold or flu? What drug herb interaction should I be aware of? No one should take any herb without looking into herb drug interactions, whether it's for yourself, your child. Let's say you have a child who's hyperactive and they're on drugs for that, and then you want to give them an herb because they have a cold or flu. You need to know. Let's say your elder parent, you want to help them out with memory. So you thought it would be really good if they took ginkgo, because you know that ginkgo's amazing. Ginkgo has the doctrine of signature of a brain. So does a walnut, right? So you'll learn all about doctrine of signatures. What does that mean? It means the plant tells you what it might be useful for. If you look at a ginkgo leaf, it looks like the hemisphere of a brain. If you look at a walnut, it looks like a little brain. That's a doctrine of signatures. But what if that person who ginkgo might be really useful for their brain, because it improves circulation to peripheral vasculature, but what if they're taking a whole bunch of blood thinners already? And you just hear that ginkgo's good, so you go give that to them. Then they go get a tooth pulled out and they bleed to death. That wouldn't make you happy, right? But yet, that happens many times a year to many people. So at least, even if you're not interested in being a professional herbalist, you want to know about how to use herbs safely and correctly for yourself and your family. And you'd also like to know about how to discuss herbs, because we do have a language. There's an herbal language, like what's a demulcent? Why would you want one? There's a whole bunch of things that can help you discuss herbs for just yourself and your family, or on a more professional level. So that's one of the outcomes that we find here. We can talk to each other as herbalists by the end of those 4 months. The other thing that I'm very interested in happening is many people who take this class, especially because the CE units available really opens it up to audiences who do have licenses, like doctors and nurses, nurse practitioners, licensed acupuncturists, registered dietitians, clinical nutritionists, and they take it because they're interested in incorporating that information into their practice. So that's also, a good way to go, where it just enhances your knowledge about natural products, and in particular, of course, herbal products. But many of those people, in my experience over these many years, is they know about what herbs to mention for a situation, but they're talking about herbs in pill form and in a bottle, yet they have never gone out. Let's say we're very lucky to have Deb right here who's doing herb walks, and I do herb walks all over the place too, but mostly in the Northeast in the summer. So you need to touch a plant and smell a plant and know what a plant looks like, and hopefully for its whole entire cycle. And that's even why we start the course in March, and our last class is June. And then you actually have until December to complete all your projects, which you mail to me physically. But to do it, you have to meet a plant, an actual plant. I mean, people who talk about being an herbalist and they've never smelled, touched, or known, I mean known intellectually, because we have a whole class called plant communication, and plants are very communicative. So that's part of what I want to bring to your experience as someone taking that class, really learning the like consciousness of plants, as well as the smell and the feel and the color and the vibration and the crystalline pattern. So there's a lot there to bring into your knowledge of being just an herbal person.
So I'm hearing that this class sounds like it could be good for wide range of people. And that's, I see that Deb answered, but just in case, Michelle asked, do we need experience before taking the course? And Deb answered that your classes are open to everyone from beginners to more advanced. But is there anything you want to expand upon anybody that might be, hesitant because this might be their first class in herbalism?
Yeah, I definitely would like to speak to that. When I designed the class, I really wanted it to be something that anyone can learn from, even if you've never done one thing with herbal medicine, but you're what I might call herbal curious. But also, it is so cost effective because when people, let's say, look at other classes to prepare to start to be called an herbalist, sometimes they're called a master herbalist. And I've seen these weekend programs that are lots of money, and then you're called an herbalist at the end of the weekend. That, I think, is exactly the worst model. This is something where you're really going to be hands-on with herbalism, but I do start with very basic knowledge. However, I have noticed that a lot of people who are pretty advanced herbalists really don't even know the basic language. So it's a good thing to backtrack, even if you already are savvy with making tinctures and extracts. Be sure that you know all the language, like what's an oxytoxic herb, something that might make you have an abortion. Really basic stuff. What is a tincture? What is an extract? What is a tisane? So we do a whole class on just the structure and function of beginning herbalism, how to get your feet wet in it, how to look up when you are in the field possible poisonous lookalikes. That's a really important piece of data to have if you're going to be doing some wildcrafting, because I'm a wildcrafting herbalist. And that's my favorite thing, to go out and get plants, make my own medicine, use that for myself and my family. That's how I started. My children, my son's going to be 48, or is it 49? One of those old ages he's going to be in September. And that's all we ever used. We only used herbal medicine for all my children. So it's so useful for yourself and your family. But in terms of learning about herbalism, we do start with concepts that are fine for beginners, but we also can go very deep into very advanced things as well. Oh, I see some questions here. Should I just read them?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so it says CEUs available for, oh, you put that already. That's an
Oh yeah,
answer,
these
right?
are
The
what
CEU.
I'm adding some things
Oh, good.
in the chat so that people will have the links to the classes as well as what the CEUs are available for.
Great. That you answered already so everyone can look. Now, what about the question about essential oils? I can answer that. Okay. I have another whole entire class on essential oils. I'm not sure if we have given that yet through the Florida school, but we will if we haven't. So essential oils are an outside topic. They're certainly part of plant medicine, very much so, but the rules for essential oils are extremely different. Why? Because the extraction process is completely different. While we're gathering wild plants, which we might dry, we might add them together and make something called a tisane. By the way, I learned last month in the Florida School of Holistic Living newsletter, which I hope you all sign up and get. See, I've been doing this every single day, all day since 1964, and I learned something really new in that newsletter. So it's like an ever expanding and exciting amount of knowledge that you get when you walk into herbalism. So I learned from the last Florida School newsletter that the word tea, the definition of it, has changed in the Merriam Dictionary, because before that, tea actually referred only to a water extract, like plants in a cup, only if you were using a plant that is called Camellia sinensis, which is used to make black tea, regular tea, or Lipton tea or English black tea. That's all Camellia sinensis. So if you were making peppermint or chamomile, that really was not called tea. It was called a tisane. And that's something that's in the class, which I'm going to change because I just learned in the Florida School newsletter that Merriam updated their definition to more what you would call in herbal medicine an infusion, which is where you're using water to extract out the actives of a plant. So that's great. It's not like a dead art, it's an ever evolving art. But to finish my answer about the essential oils are made in a completely different way. They're made usually with something called distillation. And for distillation, you actually need a distiller. Although I've done it at home, and there are ways to do it at home. It's not the best because it's really hard to measure, but where you actually use a double boiler and then you put ice in the top of the double boiler. It's got to be a certain height of a double boiler. And then when you boil the plants, if they have the right kind of terpenes, and we do a whole class on plant chemistry, so you would know what a terpene is, but that's one of the aromatic complexes, something that you're smelling in a plant, and it comes up and then coagulates on the bottom of the ice of the double boiler, and you can scrape it off. That's not the best way to do it, but all the commercial essential oils or aromatherapy are made through a process of distillation. But what that does is it makes a very different chemical complex because different things are gotten out through distillation than would be gotten out through something being infused in water or alcohol or vinegar or honey. Any of the extracting agents will make a different complex. So aromatherapies is very often so different that I would be very careful with ever using it internally. There are times you can use it internally, but a lot of times that you can't. And a lot of things that are fine to use as a tea or as an herbal extract that was extracted in alcohol become very, very poisonous in very small amounts when taken internally as an essential oil or aromatherapy, while it would have been fine in a diffuser. So there's a lot to learn there, and they're not, necessarily one-to-one compatible. So that's a little bit about essential oils. And yes, they can interact with medications. And if you're not very knowledgeable, you should not be using them internally, even though I know many, especially of the multi-level marketing kinds of companies, do talk a lot about using essential oils internally. And yes, they could be good, but you need to be knowledgeable about which actives there are in each one, and they vary greatly. So we have another question here from Rebecca. Should I just answer that question?
I'll read the question.
Please.
As an RN and not NP, can I share my knowledge as a coach on how to find a quality herbal supplement, not promote a protocol to my clients whilst staying in my lane and license restrictions as long as I put a medical disclaimer Can I recommend certain herbal supplements for certain ailments?
That is an excellent question. And I
Right.
would say that's something I fill my time with. I fill my time with because one of the things that I do right now, a lot of, one is legal and regulatory, how to actually sell herbal products that you might make at home legally. And another big one is career counseling in natural therapies. And very often those are people who are something like a health professional already with a license like yourself, an RN. And how could you incorporate natural therapeutics into your professional life? And that's something that there are many steps to. But the first question I would have for you, and you can answer on the chat and let us know, or turn your mic on, because this is a sharing, not a lecture, is what state are you in? Because that would be my first question, because the answer actually varies per state. So whoever that was, Rebecca? She's in Florida. Okay, so Florida has, certain within the language for a nurse practitioner, since you brought that up, is actually a clearly defined statement saying that nurse practitioners can recommend herbal therapies, which is really interesting. Now, the reason a nurse is an RN, I imagine, you can't, because you also can't recommend an aspirin. You don't have that under your scope of practice of your license to recommend therapeutics. But you are right on the money with how to, let's say, put together an outside therapy that you can work with clients, in that you set it up as an education only consult. And you have the client sign something to that effect, which has to be pretty extensive, saying that what you're doing is education, and you are specifically not saying that an herbal supplement is for named ailment that your client would have, but yet you could educate them about, oh, these herbs have anti-inflammatory properties, and look at this in this book. We can even look at it together. You can look at it together online. Then you're doing it as an education. So you definitely can bring natural therapeutics into your consultations as long as it's couched under education. And obviously that could not be run past health insurance, for instance. Well, if you're a nurse practitioner, you actually can practice using natural therapeutics completely legally in the state of Florida, and not necessarily in other states.
I just included the link to Ellen. I've included a few links in the chat box. So if you want to check it out, this is being recorded, so you can access it later. We've got a link to the full natural nurse certification series. We've got a link to her herbal manufacturing class that she talks about, and the legalities around that. We also have the CEUs are available for acupuncture, massage therapy, nursing, dietetics, and midwifery. And I included a link to the career paths in natural health with Ellen Kamhi. And those are available, some of them on demand. And then we'll also have more coming up sooner, again soon, because she just has such a vast offering that she can give us with her experience. So if anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself. You can just ask a question. You can put it in the link in the chat box.
So I see another question. Let's go with Mary, and then we see one from a massage therapist.
Yeah, I actually right now practice as an herbalist. Like, I have a Master of Science in Herbal Medicine from Maryland University Integrative Health. And where I'm sort of looking for guidance is, I mean, I do have the basics down, but do you have like more of an advanced sort of course work for someone that's looking for a little bit more guidance with the legislation pieces of it? Now, I do have already contracts in place with people that's education. They need to run it by their provider. And I'm in West Virginia, so my state's like, I can't claim, I mean, I know a lot of people function underneath nutrition or dietitian, but I basically say I'm not, you have to run all this by your provider before you start anything. But I'm looking for more like legislation, that piece, because I am starting to teach classes and things like that. I'm a little bit concerned about legalities for patients because, I mean, they are using it. I've
Right.
worked as a cancer nurse for a long time, and I've had to do so much education with people that were spending money on supplements. It's not funny.
That's true, Mary. Well, you're in a really excellent position because you said you're a nurse as well.
Yes, I'm a nurse and I'm going for my FMP, but right now I'm starting my coaching business and it does incorporate integrative medicine into it, where I'm going to be helping people like connect with different herbs and plants.
Right. So you've done so much training already, and also the
Yes.
Maryland school is quite excellent and has,
Yeah.
pretty much a very good in-depth training. But even so, this class goes beyond that, or you can just take any one of them. Like, I don't know if they do so much in your course in terms of the consciousness of plants,
No,
you
they're
know.
very scientific with their approach, which
Oh, this
is,
is very scientific. I want to tell
well,
you the
let me clarify,
consciousness of
like
the
there's
plants.
not any, we don't really dive as much into the spiritual pieces
Hmm.
of it
Which
when
is
I went
fine.
through it back in the
No,
day.
it's a
And
great
that's, I mean,
school.
like honestly, like I think the spiritual has a big piece there. I believe that 100%. Like I use a lot of spiritual pieces. And what drew me here though is I'm looking for something that will help me with understanding more of the legality
Hmm.
pieces. Like that's my biggest concern, and how to protect myself, since the reality is I do, even though when I work with them, I say I am functioning as a coach. I am not functioning as a nurse, and it's in my contract. At the same time, I mean, like, at the end of the day, the BON can have a little temper tantrum if they desire.
They do. That is absolutely true. So what I would suggest for you and what I do almost every day is, let's say people take
Yeah.
the herbal manufacturing legal considerations, and you can take it very inexpensively right through the Florida School on Demand. That's the beginning of that piece. But then to really dive in, I work with people one-on-one, where you send me your CV, you send me your vision, and then we actually look into your state's legislature and see what kind of rules they have. We look at, let's say, unfortunately, other people who might have gone through that attack process in your state to see what they were looking for. Did they find them online? Did they use that bad word? Like, did they use COVID? My God, you're going to be up on the rack for sure, even though you cured the patient of COVID, which God forbid you use the word cure. So, we would do a deep dive in your situation. That's private because that's specific information for you. So if you
Okay.
ever want to do that, you can reach out and we could set that up.
Yeah. I've I've come across your stuff, and I've actually utilized your, like when I saw your name on there, I was like, oh, because I've utilized some of your resources out there, and you have great resources and guidance. So I was like, oh, I have to jump on this call because I've been wanting to like take some trainings underneath you as well. So with this course, does it actually, and can you use it for anything like with the nurse coach board certification? Because for
Yes.
the, okay.
Well, that you'd have to check with that board. But let's say someone, like, I just renewed my RN license. I have one in New York and I have one in Florida.
Mhm.
I used it. I used these classes as 18 CEUs towards that, you know. Um,
Towards the nurse coach?
no, just towards the
Okay,
RN
gotcha.
recertification. So in terms of the nurse coach, is it through the American Holistic Nurses Association?
Yeah,
That
that's who
nurse
I was.
coaching? Yes.
Okay,
Yes. I
awesome.
know
Because I'm
people who have
looking at
done that.
I'm planning to move towards that right now. My program I went through was the life coach school for that, and then I haven't done anything with my herbal medicine, so I needed to like do a bunch of stuff before I do that, or if I do AHG. So like
Yeah, and then
this, so with
through
this,
AHG, I do a lot of mentoring people through the process to become an RH. And
yeah,
that's done one-on-one. And it would be, you send me that whole thing, all that you did, and then we actually go in and pull out the RH stuff, make a list in your computer, what you need. Oh, I've done that. I've done that. I've done that. Have you done anatomy and physiology? Of course you have. You're a nurse.
yeah,
So we would just fit
yeah,
that piece in there. So
yeah.
that's, again, individual.
And so with this course, but this course is the certification course,
This
correct?
is a certification, it's not a licensing,
Excellent.
but
Okay.
it is accepted by the American Holistic Nurses Association and any RN across the country, because we're getting our licensing for the CE units through the Florida Department of Health. The
Okay.
Florida school, it's not for me, it's through the Florida School of Holistic Living that has the ability to post credits on CE Broker. So that's a little bit, I'll explain what that is. If you're in a state that has CE Broker, Florida has CE Broker and several other states are part of CE Broker, we can actually post whatever credits that you get through the Florida school, including going to the Florida conference. That's usually has CE units attached to it. That we just post it right in and it appears right in your CE Broker account. But if you're in a state that is not CE Broker, then we send you that certificate of completion and you have to send it to your state. But I will say no one has ever been turned down. I will say that.
Yes. I'm looking for my nurse coach board certification. The fact that this goes towards that is amazing.
Yeah, it would.
I'm sorry, I'm like got a frog in my throat. Awesome. Thank you so much for such a wonderful in-depth question.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Thanks for joining us today. Now we saw something that I didn't, a massage therapist. I didn't answer that question yet. Right, Debbie? This one, as a massage therapist, there are ways to include herbal remedies and natural therapies together. I love learning. And one day hope to open up something including the two. I know many massage therapists who do. Another wonderful license, and probably one of the quicker ones to get if you don't already have a license, if you want one to do practice, is esthetist. Because I've had many esthetists move towards being herbalists. They already have a license where they can hang out a shingle and actually have a professional practice, and they can bring in herbs. Now, as far as saying to take an herb for a medical condition, that has to be couched very specifically so that you don't get under that moniker of practicing medicine without a license. But it is doable. Yeah, esthetist, right. So that's a very good license. And I know many people who have included that in terms of coming together. Massage therapists also can bring in herbs, but you might have to set it up that you don't do it at the same time because you want people to sign something saying you're not a doctor and you're not making this recommendation for any specific illness, but just educating them. When you bring in the piece about educating, that changes the discussion quite a bit, as long as the language on your website and on your forms matches that education model. Because here we're talking about, how to do it without getting harassed by the FDA, FTC, licensing boards from states and things like that. And also, of course, you can't put it through health insurance. Well, massage therapists, sometimes you can. Now, let me tell you this is exciting. Herbalists, I know, have been able to put herbal consults when people have something called a healthcare account. They have those what is it called? It's called different things. But different insurance companies have it to where you can put money away. It's called a health savings account. And then you can actually use it for uncovered things, such as massage. You have to get a doctor's note. And with herbal medicine, the same. You'd have to get a doctor's note saying the doctor is recommending that you get an herbal consult. And then you have to see someone who's recognized by the insurance company as an herbalist. And then the person can get reimbursed. But you, as the provider, you cannot send in a bill to insurance company and about you getting reimbursed like a doctor would or a chiropractor would or a physical therapist would. So as long as you're doing outside of that and you're doing it as education and you have really clearly defined forms that are signed, that's how you do it. And you certainly could have people to come to you for a massage and then also have an herbal consult. And another thing you can do is you can sell herbal products if you want right there on shelves in your massage studio. That you can do. Not that you made yourself. That's another whole conversation where we're not going to go today. But if you purchase them from known GMP, regular big manufacturers who are legally have it all in place, and you're just selling it from your facility or homeopathics, let's say, that can be combined in a massage therapy, depending on your state, again, depending on your state. I just want to throw out one comment about homeopathy, which I am also a homeopath and very interested in homeopathics. They have now become illegal. The FDA has just passed laws that's going to completely devastate availability, not of herbs, but of all homeopathics. They're going to be called illegal drugs. So I would suggest every single person on the call, whether you know anything about homeopathy or not, in case you learn about it later, buy a homeopathic first aid kit at your earliest convenience if you can still find one, and a book about how to use the remedies in the homeopathic first aid kit, because it is really one of the finest systems of medicine on the planet and blends perfectly with all of those other natural therapeutics such as herbal medicine.
There was another question here, Ellen, by Rebecca. She said, are you physically present at the Florida school in Jacksonville or solely online or virtual from New York?
So no, I don't go to any, I don't even know what's in Jacksonville. Do we have an office in Jacksonville?
No, we teach sometime. I mean, we've taught up there before.
Oh, yeah, no. I've actually never been in Jacksonville except when I've driven through once or twice on the highway, so no. I do teach online, and I also teach in person. And on my website at naturalnurse.com, all of those classes are listed. So I give on-ground herbal workshops where we spend the whole day going out collecting plants and making them into medicine. And I also teach all the time, almost every week, all summer, about just going on herb walks and doing outside herbal identification. So I do all of that. But this class is not on ground because then you have to be there present. So this one is like today, is live online, and it's also recorded, which is great because in case 9:30 on Sunday mornings, which is when we give it, doesn't work for you because you go to church every Sunday or you live in California and 6:30 or whatever reason, but we record it. And a lot of people take the classes, especially for the handouts, because you actually get all of my handouts. Like when we're talking about something like, I think I showed this earlier, the Ixora, which is right outside, and then we might go more into it. I'm not sure if I can share. Can I share? Oh, I can. Okay. If I wanted to talk about Ixora, then I would bring up slides and we'd be looking at the real plant, and then we'd be talking about, let's say, more the chemistry of it, the distribution and habit. And this particular plant we were talking about this morning because we were doing a workshop on crystallization and how this plant, which grows all over in Florida and acts very similar to echinacea, by the way, in supporting immune health, is also very linked to spirituality. And it was, if you've ever seen Hindus, the spiritual people, the monks are wearing orange robes, right? There you go. So we would go more deeply into the plant that way, looking at many aspects. We'd also look at the chemistry, we'd look at the active constituents. So, that's how we would do it, but it is not in person. I mean, it's in person, but it's not in the same space at the same time. Unless you want to come to New York, which many people have flown to New York to go on our herb workshops. And you're welcome to. And we also have a trip to Jamaica, which is the same time as the Florida class. It's called Echo Tours for Cures. And yesterday on YouTube, this person who's come on our Echo Tours for Cures, which have been going on for 40 years, actually released yesterday a YouTube video that has stuff from me and my partner who do that tour together, pictures from 40 years ago of us doing it. So it's a pretty cute little documentary that they did. So someone said, this is heartbreaking. What does that mean? What is heartbreaking?
I think that was in reference
To the
to the
homeopathic.
homeopathic
Oh,
piece
okay.
coming.
I
I think that
second
was a
that.
comment made back then, back when you were
It's
discussing that.
criminal to me. Yeah. So we can fight it. And also, if you want to self-prepare, buy a whole bunch of homeopathics, because the thing is, they never go bad. I bought my homeopathic first aid kit when I was pregnant with my son, who I just told you is going to be 48, right? And nothing, it doesn't go old. It doesn't get bad. So, you know, you may want to get them now. And someone said, you live in Florida, and we're so happy to have the Florida School. And if you're coming to the conference, great. Come and say hello. It'll be a wonderful place for us to all do stuff together. And also, Deb gives a lot of herb walks right locally. Like, aren't you doing that in the parks locally near the school, Deb?
I do have one coming up on March 5th, and I'm not sure when the one after that is. But yes, we try to do them as often as possible. Generally, we don't do them in June, July, and August because you'll just melt out there. But we try to do it as long as the weather holds out. We're trying to do them about once a month-ish, I think, depending on what the schedules are looking like. But it's really fun. We do it at Mead Gardens generally, so it's a lot of fun.
It is great. And we do a lot down here in South Florida too. Now, in terms of CBD, I see that CBD question. Should I answer that?
Sure.
Okay, so this week, if I have a free class on CBD, hemp, marijuana. You're not supposed to say that word marijuana anymore, but whatever you want to call it, which is CBD that also has THC, like this cannabis sativa or indica plant. I have a whole class on that, and it's free because it's being taught by the NYU nurses department, but it's open to anyone for free. That you'd have to go on my website at naturalnurse.com and look under classes, and it's going to be, I think it's this Tuesday, and there's a somewhere that you have to email and you can register for free. If you're a nurse, it has 1 CEU, and if you're not a nurse, you can still take it, and it'll go deeply into that. I also have a similar lecture right here on the Florida School under the on-demand classes. So that's another one you guys can, put up there on the chat. And that's where we give a whole long discussion about medical marijuana and CBD. So that's something else you can look into if you're interested in it. But I do not cover that so much, except maybe in passing. We don't do a full class. What the classes are is the basics of herbal medicine. Then we have a class on botany and botanical nomenclature, where we also learn about plant families. And then we have classes on using herbs for yourself and your family. So that's like, how do you create a protocol? Even if it's for being a professional, how are you creating a protocol for someone? What are you taking into account? What if it's a woman? And I think we don't even have any men on here. So what if it's a woman who's having heavy periods? Would you want to give her dong quai? No, you would not, because dong quai is an herb that can bring on your period and can help balance fertility, but it will make you bleed more heavily. So if it's that kind of person, you don't want to use that. You want to use a much more yin female balancer. So those are the kinds of things we would talk about with using herbs for yourself and your family. How to make that decision about what herbs to put together and how to use things for very simple balancing. We're not going to talk about how to cure cancer, but we might talk about how to alleviate a sore throat or achiness, things like that. Because after one herb class, even all 4 of these classes, that doesn't make you an herbalist and able to do, very complex diseases. That's not what this is about. And then we have a class on feeling the consciousness of plants. And I will tell you, there is a lot of homework. It's not like, if you want to just take the class and just listen to the lectures and just download all the literature and handouts I give, which is quite substantial, you can do that. And then you don't get the certificate. You still took the class, but you don't get the certificate. In order to finish the certificate, you have to take all the classes. You don't have to take them live. You can catch it on the archive. You have to do all the homework. I would say there's about, 2 to 4 hours a month of homework. But you don't have to do it at that time. You just have to finish all of it before December 24th, 2023. And boy, oh boy, am I busy. I am always sorry I say that because right as it's getting towards the holidays, everybody decides, oh, I really do want those credits, and they send in all their work. So it's better to do those 4 hours a month as we go through the class. And some people do that. And from doing those homeworks, you also have access to me one-on-one all the time. Because as you complete an assignment, you don't just get a check that it's done. You email it to me and I correct it and send it back to you if something needs to be changed. Even, I'm very picky. So like even since we're in an herb class, the genus and species has to be in italics. The first word, the genus, has to have a capital, and the second one starts with a small letter. Very picayune, but we're in a class about being, learning herbal medicine. So that has to be right, or I send it back. And I tell you, please change it. So that goes back and forth. Or if you have a little difficulty with understanding a concept, that goes back and forth. And sometimes we do have a private, even phone discussion about an issue that might be holding you up. So that's how the class goes. It's in person the day of, it's online, everything's available. The homework is sent in on an individual basis, and I actually correct them all. And then you have to send in at the end an herbal project, which is like anything. It can be an extract, a tea. I get a lot of salves. I'm all set with herbal salves. It's great because then I use them. It's anything that you want to make out of herbs. I've had people make art things out of herbs. That's completely fine. It just has to be something that you prepare, and you have to document how you either grew the herb or ordered it as a raw herb. That's okay. And then take pictures of your process. Why did you do it? The why has nothing to do with science. The why could be, my child has a lot of skin irritations. Somebody just sent me this phenomenal deodorant because she didn't want her kids using chemical deodorants, even the non-aluminum ones, and she decided she wanted to make her own. It's fabulous. She just sent it to me. I love that thing. It has a lot of zinc in it, and so you can make whatever you want, and you have to actually mail it along with a paper about it, why you made it. Not all scientific kind of paper, more like why did you choose this project? So it's personalized.
So Ellen, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're looking for either mentoring or something along those lines?
Well, I would say you can come through the Florida School, or you can just go to my website. Best place to find me is naturalnurse.com. And on there, I have a show called Herbally Yours, which is a radio show. And now it's a podcast too. It's actually a radio show that I do in a radio studio in New York. But now, because of technology, it's also online. That's called Herbally Yours. And I have another one called The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z. And on my website, all of those are there, over 1,000. And they're also searchable on any aspect of holistic medicine, herbalism, or any aspect of holistic medicine. And those are all there, free of charge. A lot of stuff is there just for your information if you'd like it.
Awesome. I included those. If you have any questions for us at the school, you can email us at office@holisticlivingschool.org. Ellen is at naturalnurse.com as well. And Ellen, you're going to be teaching at the Florida Herb Conference as well in
I'm
March.
so excited about being there. I'm really happy to be there. I've been there many, many other years, and if any of you want to come, it's such a fabulous event. I think somebody on here even said they were coming, one of the participants in our class today. So, and I think that are you guys going to be? I think in the past they recorded some classes for that too. So you are. Rita
It's
says you are.
we're working on that.
Yeah, okay. We won't
We're
commit
in
to
the
that yet.
process of getting that kind of nailed down.
Yes, a lot of loose ends to make a big conference like that happen, but it's always so, so, so fun and educational and just uplifting on many levels. So we're looking
That's the
forward to
first
that.
one, the first weekend conference since the day that COVID hit. It's our first weekend conference, so we're pretty excited about that, getting everyone into the woods and back into nature. We consider the conference kind of being a place to heal the healers, because it draws in a lot of the healers there. And especially now, a lot of people have been holding a lot of space for a lot of various things. So this is where we get to go and just kind of, do our thing. We get to learn a lot. I'm excited about your classes. I know everybody is. You are quite popular and very knowledgeable on everything
Not on everything.
on everything that you teach.
Yeah, right. I have a lot to learn, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's
Mhm.
always room for learning. I think we've got just a few minutes left here. If anyone has any further questions, or if Ellen has something else, or Rita has something else they might want to say.
I'll just wait as soon as we have ended the recording. I do have that special code to share with our attendees that are here.
Okay, are you all ready to do that?
Yeah.
I think
All
so.
right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.